believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, ReAwaken, also known as Ricky France, and a great episode for you today. I am glad to be back. This conversation, it was a fun conversation. Clay Clark is an incredibly motivated and successful business owner. He's dibble-dabbled in so many different industries, and it wasn't until COVID in 2020 that he took his time, attention, and energy from creating businesses and pursuing financial success to now attempting to wake up the world to the tyranny and the government overreach and all the other agendas that are going on. And he's doing this with his podcast called The Thrive Time Show, which you can find on any platforms you listen to podcasts. And he is also responsible for an amazing tour that is still going on called ReAwaken America Tour. You can find links to that tour in the show description. See if they're coming around your neck of the woods anytime soon. And if you're a longtime listener of the Ripple Effect Podcast, you will see many familiar faces. Many past guests will be speaking on that tour, so definitely check that out. Check out the links in the show description for all this stuff and much more. Even though this was a fun conversation, it was a short conversation. As you guys know, I like the long-form discussions and podcasts. We can really go deep into our personal stories, our personal philosophies, really give issues and topics the time that we need to really dissect and understand them. And when you only do 30 minutes, I mean, luckily, Clay's much like myself, he's a fast talker, so 30 minutes you can get a lot said. But there was a lot that I want to get into that we didn't have time to get into. So hopefully in the future, we'll talk again, and it'll be a much longer discussion. And the next Ripple Effect podcast is a perfect example of the benefits of having long-form discussions. I had on Chuck Orcelli from the Orcelli Effect podcast and show, and I've been on his show a bunch of times, and now he joins me. And his show is more of a radio type of show where it's live, there's commercial breaks, there's all that type of stuff, which is great. But I really enjoyed having him on, having a little bit over an hour to really get into his past, his history, his personal experiences, and it will pull at your heartstrings and give you a much better understanding of who he is as a person and the experiences that molded who he is as a person. So that's what I love about these long-form discussions, that sometimes you need an hour or 2 hours to really get a understanding and get all the tidbits about somebody's journey and who they are. And that's the power of long-form discussions and the power of these type of podcasts, in my opinion. Now, this is a shorter episode, so I don't mind going a little longer in this intro. I have a couple things that have been on my mind that I wanted to kind of just share with you guys, and maybe you guys can dive deeper into and also give me some feedback, give me some of your opinions on some of these things I'm going to be discussing. And one of the things I want to share with you guys is this controversy with SUNY Fredonia professor Stephen Kirshner. He was on a great podcast called Brain in a Vat. That's Brain in a and then VAT. And his chat on that podcast about sexual taboos and the age of consent got him in tons of trouble. I'm actually surprised it took this long for him to get in trouble, because he's also been on Thaddeus Russell's podcast, episode 142, and had many controversial opinions and perspectives on many controversial topics. And just like my last podcast with Michael Millerman, and as we discussed, anytime there's somebody super controversial who's going against the grain, I want to dive deep into it. I was curious on what he was saying, how controversial it was. Some of the sexual things and the age of consent things are topics that a lot of people who believe in freedom of speech tend to want to draw the line here on these topics. But if and where we draw the line should be discussed and debated. I don't agree with a lot of Stephen Kirshner's opinions and perspectives on a lot of stuff, but I think it's okay for him to discuss it and openly talk about this stuff, because if we don't push back on anything that we've just accepted as a culture or as a point of view, then how do we know it's correct? How do we know there's not a better way of looking at it? And even though his Sexual Taboo podcast on Brain and Navat, I don't think he's really making a whole lot of really valid points. I think he deserves the right to make them. And what makes this story interesting is that because he's arguing about the age of consent, which is actually a argument you would expect to hear more often, because so many states and so many countries have disagreements on what the age of consent should be, and the laws differ from one place to another. But what makes it interesting is that a lot of people on the right, of course, parents like myself, who are concerned about this issue of pushing sexuality or sparking conversations about sex and gender onto kids who aren't really thinking about it. Parents who have those same concerns are also a lot of the parents that are upset about his point of view because of the pedophilia conversation, because of the grooming conversation. These things are all kind of linked, or a lot of parents can kind of see how this is a slippery slope that can lead to those other things. But this also sparks the conversation about censorship, right? People who have been on the right or more conservative, they're the ones who've been dealing with much of the censorship and been preaching freedom of speech. And one thing that we have to take the time to understand and dissect is, are we only saying that because it's us being censored? When it's somebody that we don't like, are we okay with some type of censorship, especially if he's not breaking any laws, especially if he's never been charged with any crime and he's just sparking the conversation? Should there be any conversation that is off the table? My Michael Millerman conversation, which was a phenomenal conversation, I highly recommend you guys checking that out. We talk about Alexander Dugin and how he's been censored and kicked off YouTube. And I don't think any philosopher who's just sharing ideas or having discussions and having different perspectives should be kicked off any platform. I do see there's a difference between Stephen Kirshner and Professor Dugin in regards to what they're promoting or what their ideologies or perspectives are. But I don't want to fall into the trap of being okay with censorship of ideas when it's ideas I don't like. And that's what freedom of speech is all about. That's something we've said on the podcast before, and many other people have said before. Freedom of speech is there to protect unpopular speech, not to protect popular speech, because popular speech doesn't need protecting. And that's something we have to remember. And we should be right down the line with that stuff and be more consistent with our views. And an example of that is the pro-choice people, the pro-choice abortion people who didn't stick up for our body, our choice in regards to vaccines. And there's inconsistencies with people's logic on both sides of the aisle, left, right, whatever ideology you're a part of. You can almost find a exception to the rule if you talk to somebody long enough. You'll find out that, oh, they believe in this, but in this one example, they don't stick to that belief. And maybe sometimes there are logical exemptions. But those are things that we have to talk about, and those are things we have to discuss. And we also have to make sure that we're not just cherry picking the things that we like. And when our logic is defending a point of view we don't like, we shouldn't just abandon that. And I think that's all a part of self-analyzing and self-reflecting and examining and exploring ideas and perspectives, and being open to the fact that we could be wrong, and be open to the fact that maybe what I'm calling logical inconsistencies, maybe there are times where we need to draw a line. And I guess those are the things we should be discussing. So there shouldn't be any discussion taken off the table or anybody suppressed, in my opinion. And I highly recommend you guys checking out Stephen Kirshner on the Brain in a Vat podcast. The episode is called Sexual Taboos. And the hosts of Brain in a Vat, the two hosts, do a great job of arguing and debating Professor Stephen Kirshner's perspective. So definitely check that out. And if you like a great intellectual debate and conversation, that's definitely one that I highly recommend you guys checking out. Now, sticking to some hot topics, another great show I ran into recently, or at least thought-provoking show, is a recent episode of the Patrick Bet David podcast. he had on Catalina Loof. I think that's how you say her name. That's Lauf. And she is running for Congress. And they had a great discussion about all the current hot topics: abortions, public schools compared to homeschooling, and some of the problems with public schooling. They also discussed the recent Texas school shooting, and they go really deep into that. And because Patrick had more people joining them on the show and on the discussion, you got to see different perspectives and a little pushback on that, which is the type of discussions I like and enjoy. So please check that out. It was a fun discussion. They talked about a lot of the hot topics that we're all talking about in our personal lives. And I think it's really important to not get caught up in all the political nonsense, because politicians do a great job of taking everything that happens and using it to their advantage. And a lot of these issues are not cut and dry where you can be just pro guns or anti guns and thinking that that's going to be the solution to everything. And that's why I like to take a step backwards, hear a bunch of different perspectives and opinions from different people, and then kind of slowly start molding my opinions and perspectives on any topic. Typically, when it's a hot topic, that means everybody's talking about it, everybody's passionate about it immediately, but that also means you didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it and look at all the perspectives on those topics. So I think that's all very important, and we should all take our time with any story that we hear on the news. Take our time to think about it, hear other people we respect, their opinions on the issues, and then slowly mold our own opinions. Now, the last part of this intro, which is to remind you guys, this is a value for value discussion and podcast. If you guys get anything out of the shows and podcasts that I bring to you, please consider giving some value back. Unlike my guest today, Clay, I am not very good at the business part of anything, but I'm very good at trying to bring you thought-provoking discussions with thought-provoking guests. And I hope if you enjoy the show and appreciate the time and effort that it takes to put it together, that you'll also take some time and some effort to give some value in return. And that doesn't have to be financial. Like I always tell you guys, if you can't financially support the show, rate, review, tell people about the show, and that goes a long way. Also, remember the algorithms are fighting back against shows like mine, and many of us have been shadow banned for a long time. I know that's kind of a overused term in the alternative media community, but when I was on YouTube, I saw consistent increases in my followers, in my listeners, downloads, all that type of stuff. And then since being banned off YouTube and being put on a blacklist of sort on Google, it's much harder to spread the word about the show. And because the algorithms are not helping, that little bit of telling people, sharing the show, posting it on any social media platform you're on does help and goes a long way. And for those of you who can financially support the show, those of you who are doing well in life, making a little bit more money than the rest of us, and are in a good financial place, please consider financially supporting the Ripple Effect podcast and my work. We have a Patreon page, and if you support me on Patreon once a month, I do a Patreon podcast with my Patreon supporters. I have a PayPal account if you want to do a one-time donation. And thanks everyone who has signed up for Patreon, all the new people, all the people who've been sticking with the show also, and everybody who has donated a little bit on PayPal. I really, really appreciate it. We have a merch store if you want to represent the Ripple Effect podcast on a hoodie, t-shirt, kids' clothes, V-necks, whatever you want. We have tons of stuff there, mugs. So check out the RippleEffectPodcast.com, click on support, and you'll find all these links. Or if you want to go directly to the merch store, you can go to the RippleEffectPodcastMerch.com. But probably the easiest way, go to the RippleEffectPodcast.com, and you'll find links to everything there. We also have a Rockfin channel, which is a video platform that lets people tip content creators they like. I'm also helping my good friend Richard Grove get the word out about his University of Reason, which is an online university, and his autonomy courses, which are very popular. And many of the co-hosts on Grand Theft World and Matt from Content Safe are all graduates of the autonomy courses. And I'm super excited to announce my newest sponsor and supporter of the show, and that's Element Electrolyte Drinks. It was founded and created by somebody that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm sure you guys have heard me reference a bunch of times throughout the years on many of the shows I've done on paleo and keto and health and nutrition type shows, Rob Wolf. And Rob Wolf has been on this show. He's been on Joe Rogan's. He's been on Tim Ferriss. He's been on all the top podcasts all over the world. He also has a great podcast and one of the most respected people in the health and nutrition world. And he created Element, which is these electrolyte packets which you put in your water. And if you're doing keto, if you're fasting, if you're doing carnivore, a lot of times because you're not eating as much or you're not having a bunch of fruit, things that have fluids, it's harder to stay hydrated. And most things on the market for hydration are full of sugar or cheap sweeteners or artificial flavors and colors and all this stuff. And Element is just the best ingredients. It's sweetened with stevia, and people in the keto or carnivore or paleo world know that stevia or monk fruit are the two best options in regards to drinking or eating something that doesn't affect your blood sugar or insulin levels. But it's a great way of staying hydrated, getting some flavor in your water without getting all these unnecessary artificial stuff. Many of the no sugar drinks out there are sweetened with sucrose, which is just cheap artificial sweetener. So please look into Element. It's a great product. It won't knock you out of ketosis. It won't knock you out of fasting. It's great if you're playing sports to stay hydrated so you don't get muscle fatigue or you don't get muscle cramps. So it can definitely help with performance. And a lot of the keto flu discussions you would hear about, a lot of it was just dehydration. Even much of our hangovers are dehydration. We don't drink enough. We don't stay hydrated enough. Headaches. So there's a lot of things that are linked to dehydration, and Element is a great way of making sure you stay hydrated. If you use the link in the show description, you can get a free gift with your purchase. And every time you use that link, even if you're a returning customer, you will get that free gift. And I already had a couple listeners try the product and they loved it. I've had tons of really positive feedback. So please consider checking it out and let me know what you think. Let me know what flavors you like, and let me know if it's helped you with your energy, if it's helped you with some muscle fatigue, because it definitely has helped me with those things. And that's one of the exciting things about this sponsor, is that I've been using the product before they were even a sponsor. So I was really excited when they reached out to me about being a sponsor for the Ripple Effect podcast. And like I said before, you'll be able to find links to Element and all the other ways I mentioned that you can support the show on my website, therippleeffectpodcast.com. And on there, you will also find my Theory 6 music. So if you like the intro music, check out Theory 6, which is my solo music project, and you can purchase or stream that song. And I think that's finally it. I've been talking long enough, guys. Enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
I believe in the ripple effect.
Well, my background was I was the SBA, the Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year at the age of 27 for the state of Oklahoma. At the age of 20, I was named as the Metro Chamber of Commerce Entrepreneur of the Year by the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce. But really, you don't really pick the place and time that you get an award. Nor do I necessarily want an award. I guess what I did is I get up every morning at 3 a.m. and I try to work until 6 every day, 6 or 7 every day, every single day. And recently I've discovered that the importance of of observing the Sabbath. But before that, I pretty much worked, 3 a.m. to 6 or 7 every single day, 7 days a week. So when you do that, it makes it really easy to beat your competition if you're focused and you're following proven systems. And so my first business I started was called djconnection.com, djconnection.com. I started that out of my parents' basement and then my college dorm room. And then I grew that to where we were doing, if you could believe it, 4,000 events a year. So it's like 80 weddings and corporate events a weekend, mics, cameras, lights, dance floor rentals, videography, photography. And I built one of the region's largest videography companies. Then I built the region's largest wedding photography company called epicphotos.com. And I just kept building and building and building. And I helped build a very large dentistry and helped grow a big law firm, and then orthodontic practice, and then a dog training franchise, and then helped to grow a carpet cleaning franchise. Now today, if you go to thrivetimeshow.com and you click on testimonials, you can just see that's what I do. And I have 160 clients that I work with right now. And so people call me because I'm sort of a master of scale. So anybody who feels stuck, I charge people $1,700 a month, 1700, which is very unprofitable, by the way. But I make my money as I get a small percentage of the growth, and that's really where I do well. Is when you get 2% of a major number, that's pretty exciting, and that's how I make my money.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So that was obviously a lot of you were obviously very driven to pursue a lot of these different businesses and stuff like that. But where did some of your I guess, for lack of a better term, your ideological influences come from? Like maybe books, documentaries, were there philosophers? Because it sounds like you don't have a whole lot of time to do much else, to do some of that kind of research into that type of stuff. So were you always on the side on your free time, also driven for knowledge and information and that type of stuff? And if so, then what were your early influences?
Well, early on, a lot of this is I'm just going to give people raw, unfiltered. Here it is. So again, take it, folks. Some of this stuff, I hope that it helps you. But I got a hold of this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill with a book called Think and Grow Rich. Read that when I want to say 18. And there were a bunch of epiphanies I had, but I'm an aggressive reader. Okay. But there's 3 big epiphanies, that book that one was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. One is over deliver. So if possible, bring much more value than you're being paid. Wow, that's a powerful idea. I mean, when you try to over deliver, wow. Second is only surround yourself with people that are able to help lift you up and get you where you want to go. Now, see, somebody might go, I don't agree with that. I'm just telling you. So Proverbs now, I would turn to Proverbs now. As a 41-year-old guy, I would look at Proverbs, but it says, this is in Proverbs, okay? It talks about, it says, for a person who's surrounded by fools shall suffer harm. This is in Proverbs. Let me give you the actual verse here for you. So Proverbs 13:20 says, he that walks with the wise shall become wise, but a companion of fools shall suffer harm. So since the age of like 18, I don't hang around idiots. I can't handle it. I cannot handle low frequency, low energy, self-sabotaging individuals. I can't do it. Now that I've had more of an epiphany and more of an awareness with Christ, it's weird for me, because it's like God loves us and wants me to minister to people and to be kind to everybody. I also don't employ people that don't operate at a certain level. I just can't do it. So I that's some of the things I'm sorting through. But again, Think and Grow Rich is powerful. It taught me how to over deliver. Surround yourself with people that can lift you up and connect you. And then the third is the art of creating the win-win. Napoleon Hill talks about this win-win. You got to have a win-win. Like, it's got to be a win for you, win for me. So on today's show, hopefully I bring some value to you, some value to the listeners, and it's a win-win. Hopefully it's not wasting your time or your listeners' time or my time, and therefore it's a win-win-win. But anytime there's a win-lose, like a zero-sum negotiation, that's where you start to feel abused. When there's a win-lose. So you always want to make it a win-win. So that was book 1. Book 2 was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So today I'm selling another piece of real estate, and the summary of that book is you buy real estate at a low price from very emotional people in a nice neighborhood. So you look for property in a nice neighborhood that emotional people. If you see a woman burning the clothes of her husband on the lawn, go, get out of my life. Then you go, hey, do you guys want to sell your house? Is it too soon? And then you do is you buy the house at a low price in a nice neighborhood. Always has to be a nice neighborhood. And then you fix it up and you sell it. And so one property I bought, I think 17, I brought it maybe 15 years ago. I'm selling it today, or I'm closing on it today. And I do that all the time, So Rich Dad, Poor Dad's a powerful book. Then you move forward a little bit. Yeah.
Influences on your, obviously your business practices and how how you handle and run your businesses. But in regards to because obviously the ReAwakening tour, a lot of that focuses on, I don't want to dismiss running a business, because obviously that's a lot of work, but the bigger picture, right? Like the idea of basically the spiritual war that we seem to be in the middle of, and the good versus evil, the road to that we're going down as humanity slowly turns into transhumanism or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Were there books or thinkers that influenced, or I guess, a lack of a better term,
No.
red pilled you? No, you just kind of figured it out on your own.
Yes, sir.
Really, it was that simple. Like you.
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean. I'm and I'm not saying this is a good character trait. I'm just telling you what it is. And I think a lot of times people on interviews, we might maybe, as a person being interviewed, you want to say things that you think the listeners would go, oh, that's awesome. You're awesome. You're great. I'm not trying to I'm just telling you, I was driving down the road, and my wife was driving, and I'm in the passenger seat. And so if she's driving, I'm in the passenger seat. It's a Suburban. It's got about 100,000 miles on it. We're driving. We got 5 kids. She's driving, and because I'm a terrible driver and talker. I'm a good driver or a good communicator, but I don't do both well. So we're driving, and otherwise I get into the shoulder. Boop, 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 boop. And she says, "Hey, what are you going to tell your clients to do? This is January of 2020. If they do lockdowns in America." And I said, "What?" She said, "What are you going to tell them to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go home. I'll research it all of an answer." So I just began researching. So type in COVID-19. I discovered, and these are 5 things I found on my own very quickly. I would say within like 10 hours. Okay. So I do a deep dive. I go to the man cave. No one can call me. No one can reach me. I'm completely unreachable. And I'm just researching. I discovered this. And by the way, all my research is documented at time2freeamerica.com/revelation. So time2freeamerica.com/revelation. So one is that the models that said that 2.2 million Americans would die from COVID-19, those models are completely false. Completely false. And they are funded by the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. The Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, by the way, I mean, just for anybody out there that doesn't understand this, let me just be very clear on this. Okay. On the McKinsey website, and by the way, all of this is at time2freeamerica.com/revelation. Okay. So the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, which is an organization no one's ever heard of, they and the Imperial College come out of nowhere and say, 2.2 million Americans might die from COVID-19, that they might die. And people are going, oh no. And I'm going, what? Who are these people? Who funded it? And you start to discover that the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, by the way, they work, Amazon bought 100,000 additional vehicles from these people before the pandemic that they wouldn't need unless there was a pandemic. Amazon would not need 100,000 additional vehicles unless everybody fundamentally stopped going to stores and started buying online, like off a cliff. It's all of a sudden people fundamentally changed the way they bought. So I thought, that's crazy. Models that said that 2.2 million Americans would die are false. 2, I discovered that the PCR test, the polymerase chain reaction tests, are false. What? The PCR, the COVID-19 tests that we're supposed to take, they're false. So this is the audio of the inventor of the PCR test, briefly explaining how they work. Kerry Mullis, he says,
Tony Fauci does not mind going on television and lie directly into the camera.
And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody, because if you can amplify one single molecule, which PCR can do, there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body. So that could be thought of as a misuse of it.
So the models are false. The PCR tests are false. And I discovered on the NIH website, it actually said that hydroxychloroquine is an effective treatment for SARS-CoV-2. And I'm going, what? And then I start researching, and this is all time2freeamerica.com/revelation. I discovered that in 2002, this will blow your mind, that the Centers for Disease Control patented the coronavirus transmissible to humans. So the CDC actually patented the creation of coronavirus transmissible to humans with patent number 7279327. And I thought, well, what is gain of function research? Gain of function research, I discovered, is where you take a naturally occurring virus from an animal and you seek to increase the transmissibility of a pathogen to the point that it could infect humans. It could jump species and kill people. And I'm going, that's probably not good. And then I discovered in 2015 that the system and method for testing for COVID-19 was patented in 2015. I'm going to repeat that again. The system and method for testing for COVID-19 was patented in 2015. I thought, well, who patented it? With patent number US 2020-279-585 A1. The patent goes to Richard A. Rothschild. So the models are false. The PCR tests are false. The treatments are being withheld. Okay. The system and method for testing for COVID-19 has been around since 2015. And then I discovered, wow, there's this thing called the Rockefeller plan. And in 2010, the Rockefeller Plan was written, and on page 16 of this document, which you can all find at timetofreeamerica.com/revelation, they're calling for a world of tighter top-down government. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, it says here, a world of tighter top-down government and control and more authoritarian leadership is needed. It's right there. And I'm going, get out of here. I cannot believe this. Then on the World Economic Forum website, I discover they're calling for this new time called the Anthropocene. Anthropocene. I'm going, what? It says, I'm reading from the website. It says, if the world is serious about sustainability, it must embark on a new era of global law. I'm going, what? And then you see it all. It's all right there. And so I'm like, I fundamentally reject this. So I sued the mayor of Tulsa to keep the city of Tulsa open. Right away, I never shut my businesses down. I kept them open. Then I turned my building into a church because the church is all caved. And Hebrews 10:25 in the Bible tells us, and I'm trying to pack in 25 shows worth of information in 27 minutes. So I'm going to see if I can do this. But Hebrews 10:25 from the Bible, it says this from the Bible, which is very prophetic, by the way. It says, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as ye see the day approaching. And so I thought, well, probably shouldn't shut down the church, and so I went and I obsessively began reading Revelation, the book of Revelation, and I discovered in Revelation chapter 13, I'm just reading to you from the actual book here. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a man, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his authority, Revelation 13:2, which is the exact it's the exact description of the statue that's now in front of the United Nations. And then I discovered that Bill Gates had a patent number, WO2020060606, which fulfills Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 18. And so, you just do the research. And the final big epiphanies I had that I want to share with your listeners, I think will blow someone's mind. In 1971, the world started the World Economic Forum. So Klaus Schwab started the World Economic Forum in 1971 per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. In 1971, the world got off the gold standard per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. And then in 1971, the comic book was created called, check it out, Dark Seed. Dark Seed. What? Dark Seed. A comic book character series created by Jack Kirby. And I thought, Dark Seed? What is Dark Seed? Dark Seed is a comic book character, spelled kind of weird, DARKSEID. And Dark Seed is a comic book character that runs around eliminating free will by connecting everyone's brain to a hive mind. And guess what the name of the song that Elon Musk's girlfriend put out right before the pandemic started? Guess what it's called? Dark Seed. And it features Pan. The artist is Pan. And in Chinese, all the lyrics are in Chinese. And if you translate it to English, all of it explains what's going on. It's crazy. So 1971, the World Economic Forum was founded. 1971, we got off the gold standard. 1971, the Dark Seed comic book character started. And then guess what just happened during the blood moon 3 nights ago? She puts out a song. What's her new song called? It's called Grimes. Puts out the song called New Gods, which is New Gods is the Jack Kirby comic book series featuring Dark Seed. There it is. So that's where I get my research, man. I just from just researching and hopefully that was helpful. I don't know. That might be too much.
No, it's fine. Well, a lot of this stuff throughout the last couple of years we've hit on, but to get it all quickly, hard hitting. And the thing is, too, is a lot of times this stuff comes out little by little. When you look at a lot of historical things, the people who are looking at it like, how do you not see this? It's because we've connected those dots and we've taken all those pieces of information. The average person will see a news story or an article or an interview that is dissecting the mainstream narrative, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Maybe they're right. But then they move on with their lives and then they forget about it. But when you get that's why, when the pandemic documentary came out and I had Mickey Willis on, I told him how important it was for that documentary to come out and how him connecting all the dots and putting all the pieces, or not all the pieces, but many of the pieces together, it helped people see what was really going on, and it made more sense than what they were being told from the TV or the radio.
Right.
The mainstream media, and that's why people were attracted to it. People were attracted to it because it's like, okay, they're telling me this is going on, but I'm
Right.
looking around and I'm not seeing evidence of it. And so it's like, but they're the experts, because most people were just going along with their everyday lives. They didn't really think about these things. And most issues, because we have some sense of freedom where we get to go to the park with the kids, we get to bring our kids to school, we get to
Right.
go out to dinner with the wife, we get to all these little pleasures in life. So when there's like foreign policy issues or any other issues, it's like, ignorance is bliss. I'm good. I don't it's not really affecting me. I don't really need to think about it, whatever. But this is the one time in at least our generation and maybe human history that one event affected everybody at the same time, and people now had nothing but time to think about things and to analyze things. And because now those issues that were neglected are now personally having an effect on you, they're personally impacting you directly, impacting your ability to pursue happiness. And that's why it was so frustrating, because it's like a lot of these issues that we've been talking about for a long time, it's like people just didn't care because, if you're talking about Middle Eastern wars or geopolitical stuff, it's like people could care less, because it's like if we're in Syria or Yemen or wherever, like how does it affect their everyday life? If we're there or we're not there, their everyday life didn't get affected that much. Now it did. And luckily, the one good thing that came out of, and I'll let you jump in, but the one good thing that I think that came out of the whole 2020 COVID lockdown thing was the fact that people like yourself who are very motivated, very good researchers, very good thinkers and critical thinkers, they woke you up because they got your attention because of those reasons I just stated.
Well, I'll say this, piling on to what you said and agreeing with that, is I didn't care at all. So I'm just being real, and I hope this is helpful for somebody out there. I grew up really poor. Okay. So what does that mean? I don't know. Some people, that means different things. For me, it's where you take powdered something and you put it into a cup and you stir it and you call that milk. That's, okay. You move because of financial reasons that are urgent. That's what I define as poor. Okay. Somebody else says I was under a bridge pushing a shopping cart. Someone else is getting very competitive. Go, I had a shopping cart without wheels and I had to push it uphill. Okay, fine. But the point is, so I just latched on to the idea of how do I not become poor? And that's literally all I cared about. So, age 15, like my mom's like, you need to go to prom. I remember I was like 16 or 17. Mom goes, you should go to prom. I'm going, why? Why would we go? I don't get to cheer for the person with a symmetrical face and the person who won the genetic lottery who's good at throwing a football and the beauty queen. Why would that be appealing? And my mom's going, no, you should go. And I remember thinking, this was one of the worst moments of my life. I can't stand prom. And then I was like, Mom and Dad, I want to drop out of high school. They're like, no, you can't drop out of high school. So I go meet with my guidance counselor. And he says, well, you could, go to college early. So I went to college early. And I went to college. I'm 17, 16 years old going to college. I'm going, everybody here's an idiot. I mean, literally all the girls, I'm not kidding. They're either pregnant, they have an STD, they have no focus, no vision. Everybody's high all the time. People are drunk. It's a great big party. But because the parents are paying for it, nobody will sober up and say, this is an epic waste of time. I had a class with a guy, a social science teacher at St. Cloud State, who literally spent an entire semester devoted to obsessing about what the meaning of time is. Time. What is time? And we're like 500 people in a room. Half of them are sleeping. In our social science class, he's time. What is time? I'm like, get out of here. And then I had a class in college of graphic design about shading, where it's called the chiaroscuro theory to shading. And I'm spending a whole month learning how to shade a circle. And I'm like, what is that? Then the Mesopotamian papyrus and cuneiform and the reeds and what? The McCarthyism. And I'm just like, this is jackassery. So I went to college, switched to a different college, switched to another college, switched to another college. And while I was doing that, I just kept building my business. I discovered that college, we were being told that college, you're supposed to go there to learn how to start a career. And I'm going, that's not it at all. They're trying to teach you how to think with the Rockefeller method, where you memorize stuff and you mindlessly regurgitate it. And I rejected all that. So when I was 20 years old, a lot of my buddies are 20 years old. They're still, woo, You going out to party tonight, bro? Woo! No, I'm organizing 1,000 weddings or corporate events a year. I've got a multi-million-dollar business I'm building. I'm 22. I'm married. I got a kid. And my wife and I are married. We got our kids. We had a young family. We were married, and I had 5 kids before I was 30. And so I already had a house, big 6,000 square foot house, land, property, real estate. And I'm just doing my own thing. And then people came to me and said, could you help me grow my business? And this is how I got involved. Every one of my clients was saying, what am I going to do to keep my employees safe from COVID-19? And I go, nothing. Literally, the models are false. The PCR tests are false. The treatments are real. Nothing. Do nothing. It doesn't help. And they go, yeah, but I feel a lot of pressure. I'm like, do nothing. And it occurred to me at that point that a lot of people will capitulate, which, by the way, the Grimes song she put out called We Appreciate Power, that song prophesies COVID-19 and forced vaccinations. It's called We Appreciate Power, where the entire song, she says, what will it take to make you capitulate? So I discovered that all these people around me were caving. And so I'm going, I got to do something more than sue the mayor, turn my building into a church. I've got to organize Mickey Willis, who you mentioned, Dr. Zelenko, General Flynn, Eric Trump, Don Trump Jr., Dr. Tenpenny, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Mike Lindell, Jonathan Kahn, the prophet, Amanda Grace, the prophet, Lance Wallnau, the prophet, everybody who's speaking on behalf of the truth. I got to get them all in a room. Jason Burmis, Miriam Hadain, bigger names, smaller names. I got to get them all there. And a sense of urgency demands that people can just pay whatever they want. And people go, have you lost your mind? So like right now, as a housekeeping note, if you want to go to Virginia Beach, this will be the biggest event we've done, by the way. If there's one event you go to, I'm telling you, Virginia Beach, Don Trump Jr., Eric Trump will be there. It's next level. And you go there, and we start at 9 a.m. and we go till about 7, and there's a new speaker every 15 minutes. I think we have 84 confirmed speakers for 2 days. And I'm telling you, people come to this, and I watch them, and they go, holy crap, I've never seen all this put together. It is a life-changing, mind-bending event. And then we say on Friday night, if you want to go to the baptisms, you can. And we have like 1/3 of the people get baptized. It's crazy. I mean, people that have never been to church, people that thought, because the Rockefeller mindset to education is corrupt. And the religious Pharisee, scribe-driven, bogus, big building, fog machine, skinny jean church of political correctness, that's also bogus. And I am just fired up about what's happening right now. So I just say in housekeeping notes, seriously, if you go to timetofreeamerica.com, you can request your tickets to Virginia Beach. We have just under 1,000 tickets left for that. It's going to be epic. And we have people paying $25 for a 2-day event. I don't care what you pay, whatever you can pay. It costs me about $400,000 to $500,000 to put on each event. Okay. That's what it costs me. So I hope people pay something. We have some people that pay for VIPs, and that helps offset the cost. That's great. And then the documentary we made, documenting the ReAwakening, you can download that for free by going to timetofreeamerica.com, and you click on shop now. And I'm just trying to get the information out there for the same reasons you are. And the only highlight about this whole thing for me has been meeting great people like you that I would have never met, and also discovering things outside of business. Because previous to this, all I cared about was business, and I did very well at it. And now God's arrested my attention, and I feel like I've been called to help reawaken America. And I think my role is to gather the experts, gather the truth tellers, and let them share the truth. And the only censorship that I have at all, the only influence I have at all on the stage, is I choose every speaker who's on the stage. So if you don't like a speaker, that's my fault. Every speaker on that stage, I choose. There's no committee. I do it. And then I tell them, only cite facts, please. Only facts. Don't give me opinions. Give me facts. That's the only 2 little bits of censorship I provide.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that's interesting, because people like yourself, who, like I said, were motivated with just basically pursuing a career and building.
That's all it was, bro.
And now, you basically are on our team, I guess, for lack of a better word. And
I'm new to the team,
yeah.
And people I think are skeptical sometimes of what I'm doing. They go, well, I talked to a guy at the last event in Myrtle Beach, and it was hilarious. He goes, I watched your documentary and I didn't pay for it. I'm here at the event and I only paid like $10. So I have paid you a total of $10. This is day 2. But day 1, people are still a little skittish. Day 2, I greet everybody. I get there at 6 a.m. to greet everybody as they come in. So I'm greeting, 3,000 people, 5,000 people. And he goes, what is your motive, bro? I go, I'm literally trying to save America for my 5 kids. I don't want my kids to go to quarantine camps. He goes, what? I said, just go to Google. It says CDC green zone. It's the CDC is literally calling for the implementation of Nazi-style quarantine camps. Congress has legislation called HR 666 and HR 6666. There's 4 sixes. And this is their plan for us. So we have to win because COVID-19 stands for Certificate of Vaccination IDAI, Certificate of Vaccination IDAI. And they have a plan to put us in a quarantine camp if we don't want to take RNA modifying nanotechnology inside our body. That's their plan. So the only way to win COVID-19 is to completely reject this fake science tyranny. Either they win or we win. But the sense of urgency demands, and he just was blown away. He's like, I finally get the passion. I understand it now. But I think a lot of people just thought, well, this is going to be like another CPAC. This will be like a more, truth-telling version of the RNC. No, this is demoralizing for Democrats and embarrassing for Republicans. This is facts.
Well, how has this whole experience, or has it, this whole experience, has it had a effect on the way you live your life or where you focus your energy and time? Because obviously before it was career motivated, and it was obviously you're just trying to build your business or whatever. But because of like seeing this bigger picture and obviously the times that we're in, have you decided like, oh, let me try to spend a little bit more time with my family and cherish these moments because I don't want to take this stuff for granted. Let me spend a little bit more time on these other
I've always scheduled time for the family. So I work, from 3 to 6, and then I spend time with family after 6.
Sleep. Yeah, or when do you sleep, I should say?
I go to bed at 9. I wake up at 3.
So 6 hours, and
that's all I do. I like to sleep 5 if I can. I go to bed at 9, wake up. If I can go to bed at 9 and wake up at 3, I like that 5 to 6 hour round. That's what I like.
Well, I'm a believer. It's funny you say this because I'm a big believer of this. I almost feel like I'm a big health and nutrition guy. I've had Rob Wolf, Dominic D'Agostino, people in that world on throughout the years. And the sleep thing, I've always had a hard time grasping because a lot of people much smarter than myself will talk about how like, oh, we need Mark Sisson for one.
Well,
that we need 9 hours of sleep, and I'm sure there's science to prove that.
I'm going to go a little bit woo-woo for you. I have a lot of doctors that are my clients, okay? And so I'm not saying I'm a fitness expert or whatever. I just have a lot of doctors that are clients. And this is what I found with my clients that are doctors. I'm just going to give people what they tell me at scale, okay? And so one of my clients, Dr. Sherwood, it's sherwood.tv. Another client, Dr. Jim Meehan. I'm just citing some examples. And let's say a guy shows up and he wants to lose 50 pounds. This is what the doctor will say. Don't eat wheat, sweets, and don't drink alcohol. No wheat, sweets, and alcohol, period, for you. No wheat, no sweets, no alcohol. And they go, what else? Just do that. But what else? Physically move your body. And the client for an hour a day. And the client will go, well, I'm so busy, I can't. And they go, listen, what time do you go to bed? The client says, I go to bed at 10. What time do you wake up? They go like 7. The doctor virtually every time says, wake up at 5. Like go to bed at, 10, but start waking up at 5. They go, well, I just like to get my sleep. I like to stop it. You're oversleeping. Get up at 5. And I see it though, because some of these guys have been my clients for years. So I'll see a client and I'm going, man, that guy lost 80 pounds. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And I say, man, how did you lose all the weight? And they go, no wheat, no sweets, no alcohol. And I get up at 5 and I move around to verify I'm alive. They're working out or I got a thing. And at first, but again, it's a culture of sort of oversleep, overeat.
You're right.
And there's this, we're so coddled. It's like, oh, you got to sleep 10 hours a day and you got to have some bread, with your food. I think the food pyramid will make you sick. But anyway, so there's just a lot there. So I just encourage people right now, for me, back to the question, how does it change my life? I am 100% focused 100% of the time on trying to save America. That's what I'm doing. So today, and I'm so sorry that I have to be like one of these rude, hard,
that's right,
break diva interview guys. But basically, I did my first interview today. So I got here this morning at 3:30 a.m. And then my first from 3:30 to 6:30, I was planning stuff. 6:30 a.m. I had my first interview. 7, I worked with the client. 8, I worked with the client. Next interview at 8:30. 9, next client. 10, another interview. 10:30, another interview. And then boom, 11. I got another one at 12. So it's just boom, 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 boom. And I'm just trying to share. I'm Paul Revering right now, but I encourage everybody, seriously, whether you pay me a dime or not, go to timetofreeamerica.com, get a ticket to one of our events. You need to hear the message. You need to hear the truth. And you can also download the documentary for free called The ReAwakening. You can download that at timetofreeamerica.com. And I promise you, of all the people on the stage, I'm the least impressive. I just happen to be the most aggressive, and I'm very organized. So I'm a grinder who's very organized. So, but I appreciate you you allow me to be here, and I get it because I hope we've woken somebody up. And again, all the facts I shared today are cited at timetofreeamerica.com/revelation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I was going to say that I agree with you with the sleep thing. I disagree with most experts because I've dealt with it for many years about I try to get a little bit more sleep and I feel groggy all day. And it's like, even if I'm a little tired mentally and cognitively, I feel like I'm sharper if I'm, within that 5 to.
I like to be sharp, bro. I like the edge. That's what I like. I don't know if that's good. Hey, thank you, brother.
Hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
I appreciate you. Thank you. I really do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.